here today. So today we've got Madhura Banji, who is a robotic process automation expert working at PwC India ever since her college graduation. She has a master's degree in computer science. Through the course of her professional career, she has delivered multiple automation solutions, served as trainer for her clients, as well as coached students in the fields of RPA and chatbots. She is now 26, with the majority of her experience in India's Silicon Valley of Bangalore. She is an author of multiple books. That's super impressive, including poetry and children's fiction, and also a TEDx speaker. And she is on her way to start her MBA in the United States this fall. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Madhuri, and let's get us started.
Hi. And first of all, a big thank you to Women Who Code for this event. I am very excited for the other sessions lined up. I had the opportunity to connect to some speakers offline, and I've been inspired by my peers. And thank you, Sandy, for that introduction. I'm very glad to make your acquaintance, and thank you to the admin, all the admins who made this journey from getting accepted as a speaker to actually presenting all the more seamless. And it's already been great, so I can only imagine what the next 45 minutes will be like. I'm very, very excited. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I do miss saying that now that I have left my workplace to prepare for my MBA. I used to wake up every morning, and that would be the first thing I used to say, that let me share my screen. So let me do that. So I'm hoping it's visible. Just pop on over and see if anybody wants to say it's not visible or it's okay. Thanks for the acknowledgement. Great. So I want to talk about the love-hate relationship with a bug. And like it was mentioned in my introduction, I have been working at PwC India, and I've been a developer. I've been working with in the space of robotic process automation, RPA. So my work entailed getting some well set requirements from my clients, mostly about subjects I had nothing to do with, like finance and mostly finance. That's what I became a subject matter expert of through the course of my work. Even though I don't have certifications for it, I worked heavily in finance use cases. And once I'd get that knowledge from them, I had to translate that into code, into a design and algorithm, use UiPath technology, and ultimately deliver my automation solution that would carry out each of the steps seamlessly and have some business impact. Mostly just contribute to time savings and cost savings, and just make the manual executions easier for the people. So where does this inspiration for the love hate relationship with the bug come from? Hate, because I have covered the spectrum from absolute junior developer, fresh graduate hired out of college into a new company, into a big four company, and then just thrown into the deep end of the pool of a critical client project. Looking back, I'm very grateful for that. But that is where the inspiration for the hate part of this comes from, the hate for a bug. So what used to, you can only imagine how a junior developer would have reacted to an escalation email saying that this is not working. I thought it directly meant that it was a criticism for me, that I didn't do the work well. And I have been I have been the classic good girl through school, and I thought this would just be like school, that I would be given an assignment, I would deliver, I would get an A+, and that's exactly how it would go. But it didn't. And strangely enough, that is where the love part of it comes from. Because why do I have a love-hate relationship with a bug? Because the bugs, those escalation emails, those tough conversations I was forced to have with my leadership, they taught me to be stronger. They taught me to overcome these bugs, and they also made me more resolute in my way of fixing them and realizing that it was not always my fault. When I say my fault, I mean the code's fault, because the code was my baby. So uh, for all who are watching this session, and yeah, thanks for that. I mean, I'm so glad people could relate to this. And I mean, I know, right? That's all I can say. Hashtag I know, right? So anyone who's attending the session, I want you to go back to your memories of the workplace and think of some of your bigger achievements, some of your most memorable achievements, and perhaps you can note them down based on these parameters. When did that happen? Who were you at that stage of your career, and how did that achievement come to be, basically? So before I dive into my story, I want to tell you that I mean, you can just think about it, or you can write it down, you can share in the comments too. But I would also like to hear back from you after the session is done. I'll be sharing my contact details. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. And yeah, I'd like to hear from you, and I'd like to also relate to the things you say. So, diving into my story, and I stuck to one story because if I go into how bugs shaped me, this could just be a long drawn coffee chat where we are all just tearfully sharing our emotions and talking about how far we've come. But anyway, one story. So when did this happen? This was the winter of 2020. I was I did train in UiPath technology and RPA. I did shadow some seniors, but it was for a very short time. And I think it's because of the criticality of certain projects that I was just thrown into this new thing that was given to me. It was a very, very complex finance process. And at that time, I was naive enough to think that I could not ask for help, that asking for help was for the weak. And actually admitting that I don't know how to do this was also a sign, would also reflect negatively on me, and I could not have been more wrong. But anyway, that was where I was, and I had this huge requirement in front of me, and the timeline given to me, which obviously was also cut short, because that's what eventually happens. And so I just set to work. I thought, okay, let me do this. So I wrote the code, but in the end, um, I mean, I did finish my logic building, the whole building blocks of the whole thing, the flow of it, in time. But it started running into exceptions. And when was this? Winter of 2020. Who was I? I was a junior developer, and yeah, so it started running into all these exceptions. And so a week went by, a week and a half, people were not really raising their voices, but suddenly I came under the radar as a deliverable that was delayed. And I had nothing else to say. I mean, I've always been very honest about where I am and what I do. So I quickly told them that, see, this is happening and I don't know how to overcome this, a wall that is standing between me and the solution and the 100% efficiency of this software bot, where the wall is made of 101 bugs, and I don't know what to do about them. I don't know why they're coming, because I built this to the best of my knowledge. And again, because of certain dynamics, probably it became a very I mean, it wasn't the most happy place in my life at that point, right? But then I realized that none of these excuses were doing me any good. So I needed to get through this. Again, I still was naive enough to think that asking for help was not an option. But I thought that was my last straw. So I did ask my seniors for help, but I again ran into a complication, that this process, this requirement was so complex that it would take someone a week or 10 days to actually understand each of the steps, for them to identify where it was going wrong. So functionally, I sought help, but I didn't get the help because of time constraints. But I overcame this on my own, because my seniors, they pointed something very valuable to me. They said, "Why are you? Why are you hyper fixing?" There was an exception from one UI element, so I just jumped onto it and added some extra exception handling mechanisms. And my seniors just asked me, "Why are you doing that? The elements failing, is that your fault?" And it struck me, was that even a thing that could be, that there was a bug coming in my code, but it was not my fault? And it just opened all kinds of doors for me. I realized that my code is strongly coupled with a lot of applications. And then I got in touch with my clients. They were kind enough to figure out if there were any problems in their settings, and that's what it was happening. There were things that had nothing to do with my code which were going wrong, so they had to adjust certain things on my end, and I had to reflect on whatever adjustments they were making. And finally, within a very short turnaround time, my code was back up and running. It gave the efficiency that was required of it. It was the first automation solution that I built entirely on my own, that went into production and pushed into live. And to this day, it has been stable like anything. And that's why it is one of my biggest achievements, because not only did I overcome this wall of bugs, but it allowed me to view bugs in a different light. So this was how my brain was functioning at that very low point in my career, right? Of course, I mean, I should be very grateful. It wasn't a low point in other ways, but emotionally low. You get it, right? So where did it go wrong? My brain was just literally all over the place, where it jumped at the worst possible step, that I did not code it properly. That people were looking at me as somebody who could not code, even though that's what I did my bachelor's in, that's what I did my master's in. And there was something wrong with my logic. There was something wrong with the way I built it. But it wasn't that. And that's when, and because my senior pointed it out, that why are you thinking that way? They helped me look at all the other aspects of it. Like, it could have been something wrong in the configuration, that and the configuration is again not something that's dependent on me. It's a small file, and a small word in that file can lead to so many things. Like, maybe the database administrator had made some changes in the name of the database, and that is what is leading to the exception. So all I have to do is just change one word in English in that small configuration file. That's about it. No huge fix required. It could have failed in the initialization stage. I mean, I mean, it happened for my juniors in later stages, and they freaked out just as I did. So I could guide them that that our bot was retrieving the username and password from the secure storage. It was typing this username password in the required spaces. It was clicking on login, but just as it clicked on login, there was a pop-up screen that came up that the site is undergoing maintenance. And when the requirements were being given to us, we the clients did not anticipate this pop-up. We did not anticipate this pop-up, even though we know as human beings that applications do undergo maintenance. It's just that it wasn't considered at that point. So the bot, it just failed at initialization without going into the whole logic block of it. And whatever was reported in the end was an error, a system error. And that eventually probes us to look further inside our code, when it had nothing to do with the code at all. All we had to do was consider these unforeseen pop-ups and incorporate them. Unit testing, again, it just, my brain would go there too. So if code logic was the number one pitfall, the worst that I could think was going to happen, number two was always unit testing. Because like I said, the use cases that I dealt with were all based on core finance, and I didn't know about, I never studied finance at that point. And incoming MBA, now I have to, but at that point I didn't. So there were all these different logic block or logic branches, and maybe like 10-15 logic branches per use case, and maybe I missed out testing one. Because the when I was building when I am building a solution, the initial round of testing is dependent on me, and I didn't know to test that branch, and did that go wrong? And I don't know about the dynamics in other places, but that is also initially seen as a shortcoming on our end, that why did we not do all the pre-checks? But yes, and all of these other connections, like the databases, API, them failing, did I mean, I was very new to API calls, and even now I'll say I'm still learning about uh, uh, coding through APIs. So that again was a very big fear for me. So why did I represent a graph in this way? It was like my brain was exploding, and it was going in all possible directions, but it shouldn't have. So this is a quote that I found while I was making this presentation for Women Who Code, but I wish I had known that previously. I wish I had been less of a solitary worker. I wish I had worked more in a community. And the sense of community is one of the biggest learnings in my corporate career. And that is why communities like Women Who Code or any other place where people are lifting each other up every single day is so special to me, because it signifies a huge learning tool for me. And once I opened up to my team, I realized that everybody's out there to help you. And maybe I got lucky with my team of peers, but everybody was so they were there for me, and they helped me realize that it was basically this. And I want to share this because in case someone is at this stage where I was at that stage, just starting out with development jobs and so on, walking on water and developing software from a specification are easy if both are frozen. But the reality of it is they are constantly changing. Uh, your requirements, at least for me, all of these business processes that were dependent on applications, that were dependent on financial calculations, that even uh, in that dependent on exchange rates across countries, they were just subject to change so frequently. And contrasting with this brain explosion, I now am able to think in a more neater approach, that it's not always me being the code, but it sometimes can be you. That is the enterprise. That is the huge collection of applications, databases, credential storage mechanisms, and environment endpoints that the code is has to be coupled with, and the code is always coupled with. So yes, so I could neatly fit them in boxes. So every time in the when I grew up in my career, that is, I went from one promotion to another, from junior to now an associate also. Then I was even trusted to train people in UiPath technology, and I couldn't believe that. I mean, okay, could you imagine the place I was at one point, and then suddenly I am training people. But then I realized that the people who had trained me at some point went through the same series of pitfalls to come out, just emerge as butterflies. I won't assume that I am just at the highest of my knowledge at any point, but definitely have come a distance. And this is how I think now, in neater boxes, no more brain explosions. So if something happens, I need to consider if the applications had timed out, which it so often did, if the user interfaces were volatile, if they were not responding in time, if they were changing. I mean, so many times the application or a web page or anything really, any application that the your solution is opening and closing, the design team goes through a lot of changes and the layout changes, and maybe the page that you're looking for doesn't exist anymore. So again, water isn't frozen, it's constantly in motion. You have to revamp your code to incorporate that, and that's a huge part of the job also, right? The maintenance of it. Again, if bugs happen because a UI element couldn't be identified, not on you. Credential rotation, credential storage, a big part of it, because a lot of sensitive data is often dealt with in solutions like this. So we would use a third party application to store our credentials, and we would fetch the credentials from there. We would sometimes, when the business would give us a use case, we would have no idea what the credentials are. We would just know the name of the safe from where we're fetching the credentials, and whatever the administrator is doing within that credentials, changing the password or adding different fields, that's up to them. And if they change it, then our bot will be unable to fetch it, or it will fetch some wrong details and try to log in, leading to an error again, and which is again not our fault. Then there can be this third box of issues, the functional issues. Like I said, say the exchange rate is changing, So the financial calculations must be changed by the client, not by us. So and there are many times when a use case can only start if a client gives a manual input to it. So the because of human error, which we do, which all of us are prone to, the inputs that we give are wrong, and that's why the bot throws some kind of error, which again is not on the logic. It's I mean, we should say that the error has been thrown because the bot is following the correct logic, because it has identified that the input is wrong. Well, it may not always identify the input as wrong, but we have to backtrack, right? But I mean, it will not go the distance with the wrong input, and that is what the success of the bot is. Environment issues. Okay, another story time. So yes, as most of you have experience in, you build your you build your software in a development environment, then you push them to UAT, and when you push them to UAT in the user acceptance testing environment, maybe there are certain tweaks and things and other things for which the your solution is not responding correctly. I mean, there can be a network lag, or maybe you're scheduling your solution to run in the environment, but there are already 5 more scheduled tasks. So maybe you have written your code in such a way that after it waits for say 24 hours, it throws an error, which again is a bug. But again, it's not a bug that's dependent on you. It's because there has been hyper queuing. And yeah, another very funny story I have about an environment issue. So I had this automation solution that I built very recently. I mean, in the recent this year itself, and it went into the production environment, and it was running absolutely fine, neat and clean. It was well. I gave a very nice demo in my development stage. Then the testing was done successfully, so I got the green signal to push it to production. And when it went into production, it started returning an error saying that um, there is a credential mismatch. And again, I knew better. This time I knew I had to ask for help, so I asked for help. But no one from senior developers who helped me with the functional side of things to platform engineers who were dealing with the endpoints and the platform side of things could actually understand what this error actually meant. And we went for days trying to analyze what it meant, until one of my seniors, she just got really frustrated, and she said, why don't you restart, why don't you shut down your production VM, restart it, and try to schedule your bot again. And I thought, how are you giving me that solution? That literally means that if the TV is not working, can you switch it off and switch it on again? It's literally that. And she said, well, do you have a better solution? And well, I didn't. So I did that. I restarted my VM, I restarted my bot, and guess what? It started running. It started running successfully. It gave me the results that I wanted, and I started getting clean production runs, and it was signed off. And to this day, I have no idea what it was. So sometimes the bug can be a mystery. So love, yes, since love can be mysterious, I just leave this part of my experience to the love side of things, not the hate side of things, because I really broke into laughter. It was delightful. And even though I had some tough conversations with my manager, who wanted a really thorough investigation of what the error was, I wrote what I knew, I wrote what I did, but the source to this day, I don't know about it. I gave my handover when I resigned, and I told the new person that, if something happens, then you just switch it on and switch it off. I mean, there's nothing more to do here, right? I see people reacting to it, saying it happened to them too. So that's reassuring. So yes, basically, um, what this whole thing made me realize, not just the previous story, but my whole experience regarding bugs made me realize, is it helped me appreciate the bigger picture. It helped me understand that my code is connected to a much bigger enterprise, that my code is just one aspect of a bigger life cycle of things. That why were the business people adopting robotic process automation anyway? It was to save time or to save costs. It was to minimize repetitive behavior by humans. It was to minimize human error. It was to ensure that sensitive information did not pass amongst people. So all of these different things it had to deal with, and this code was just it had so many endpoints to so many different applications and considerations. And we were also posting our results into different databases, sending our reports as emails, as automated emails to the clients, and the clients then they would take those emails, those result emails. It would be this huge excel every day of financial data that the bot was calculating and returning as results, and they would use those calculations for say payroll. And someone's salary, maybe an intern's salary, was dependent on a line of code that I was writing. So it made me appreciate the big enterprise that my code is connected to, that all these things that can go wrong, that all these wires that are there, the bigger number of wires there are, the bigger the picture is, and the bigger the picture is, it just makes you feel more fulfilled in your job, thinking that I actually built something of impact, that is not just a line of code. And I have always that made me fall deeper in love with the whole corporate culture of things. People don't usually say positive things about the corporate culture, but it made me feel like a drop in an ocean, and that can be a great thing. It meant that there was so much left to conquer, and that is exactly what I wanted to do. And hence I had always planned for an MBA, but not maybe immediately. I mean, I'm 26. I thought maybe I'll do an executive MBA in my 30s, but then I realized no, I should do this now, because I am a drop in the ocean, but I want to contribute to a larger life cycle of this whole natural phenomenon, and that's what happened. So yes, looking back, our code is often uh, I mean, our code is a part of it's often dysfunctional community. Like there can the bugs can occur because of wrong inputs, because of unstable UIs, because of changes in logic which we have nothing to do with. There can be application timeouts, there can be network issues. There can be network issues, guys. I mean, the environment that you're working on, maybe someone is controlling that, and the network suddenly, just there is a big explosion somewhere and the network goes off. So I had that happen once. Hours and hours of data getting processed by my bot, and suddenly the results don't get posted. Why? Because there has been a network timeout. And that led to escalation, that why are the results not available on time. And of course the result that was reported was those red marks. I mean, we had also color coded our results when they would be sent as automated emails, that errors would read in red marks. So all these red lettered emails were coming to our leadership. So that concerned them, that fell into their radar, and all those things. Credential rotation, like I said, someone can change the password that the bot is fetching, or the bot can be fetching some backdated password, and all we have to do is just tweak something. So in the end, we are just trying our best, and the least we can do is have faith in the logic that we have built. If you would notice, there is a syntax error here. So sometimes, another funny story which everybody in this room I know has dealt with is that there has been a bug. We have been trying to figure out what it is. We have been analyzing the logic for 3 days without sleep, overdosing on coffee, only to realize that we missed a bracket. That is human error. What can we do about it? But we did our best, right? So the pyramid structure that I believed in. Um, Yes. So, yes, this is a pyramid structure that I worked with. That at first, in the earlier stage of things, when a bug occurs, there can be a huge possibility of what the source of the error is. So we analyze, so that, as you can see, the width is bigger, and the length and the width, they are all bigger. So analyzing takes more time, is what I feel. And then when we know what the source is, or what the source can be, we allocate either to ourselves. We allocate the responsibility, saying that this is an error in the logic, which is also genuine. I mean, did I forget to mention that sometimes bugs occur because we miss things in our code? We miss to quote things, but that's I did not want that to be the focus of the discussion here, because we all know that that's the worst of our fears, but it's not always that. But anyway, the we either allocate it to ourselves, or we allocate it to someone who is going to take the responsibility. If the application is not responding in time, we get in touch with the IT professionals in who deal with that application. Then this the block here again, it has a bigger width, because we either go into solving that bug, or we delegate it to them and work closely with whoever is making the changes, so that we can do a round of testing, and then we can ensure that whatever fixes were put in place either by us or by the required person, I mean, the changes are not going to affect our efficiency anymore. And then yeah, we fix and we wait, which again, this final thing is again a pyramid in itself, because it iteratively goes back to maintaining the software. It goes into identifying more bugs, or identifying what other, how we can make the code better. That is also another very important thing I learned, that just because the code is running fine doesn't mean that that it couldn't be better. So my biggest learning has been effective exception handling. I admit that when I used to code certain things, I just used to write the lines of code and be like, yes, this is the, it will respond in time. But experience and months and years, they allowed me to have foresight, because you can only do effective exception handling if you have foresight. So a very small set of operations, like writing typing a word into a title bar, it can fail because, say, the title bar has changed its position, or the title bar doesn't exist anymore, or after writing that small thing, and you click on, say, process, the next page doesn't arrive. One operation requires, say, 10 branches of possibilities. Like, first, does the title bar exist? Second, after you type them down, are you sure that it has been typed? Because that is also something that goes wrong, that you when once the bot is typing, sometimes because of network lag, it does not type, it doesn't get enough time to type the whole thing. So you wait for ready, and you wait for the entire string to get typed, and then you click on the button that processes that string, and then again you have to wait to see if the next page arrives or not. That is also something we must take into consideration. And this is a very brief summary of it, but tens and thousands of, sometimes even hundreds of things have to be considered for a very small block of code. So what it taught me, what this whole love hate relationship taught me, was that things will go wrong. We must go into our development mindset by thinking that things will go wrong. But how will that mindset help us? It will give us foresight. It will help us those exceptions and deal with them, so that when a bug comes to us, it's not a surprise anymore. That we will be able to say, yes, we have handled this, and there is a reason why this is happening. Let us get back to you about what the root cause analysis is, and so on. So I don't fear anymore. I don't my brain doesn't explode all over the place anymore. I don't I don't initially assume that there is something wrong in the way I have built the code anymore. I appreciate how I surrender to the I don't know, and that's really and that's liberating. So when a bug gets reported, you don't know where it's coming from, which means that it need not always be the code. It can be so many other things at once. And that is how I want to leave you. That is the idea I want to leave you with. And I see a lot of people relating to the things I'm saying, for which I am grateful. I'm loving these comments. And for those who are still at a stage where you fear such emails, where you fear such escalations, or the error count is intimidating you, I want you to have faith in the work that you have done already, and yes, surrender to the I don't know. It it works. So yes, I would love to answer any questions. And I would love to stay in touch. This is my email. You will find me on LinkedIn as well. I'm also very, very active on Instagram if you want to, stay friends and stay connected and so on. Charlotte says she feels more normal, and I couldn't have asked for a better comment or a better send off. It's uh, it's the least I could hope for, because in all those nights where I couldn't get any sleep, I that's exactly how I wanted to feel. I wanted to feel like myself. I wanted to feel like the person who took up this job, and to know that other people are there who went through this whole spectrum of emotions, who went through this whole spectrum of challenges, is very reassuring. And if I could just be that for even one more person, then that would be that's great for me. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you. This was a fantastic talk. I feel like just watching the chat, every single person watching this can relate to this. And it's just so relatable. And you did such a fantastic job of weaving in your personal stories and sharing that information with us to show how you moved along in your path from hate to love. That was super, super great. I love that. And if anybody has any questions, drop them in the chat. We've got just a couple minutes, but we can address them if we need to. But yeah, I am curious. Do you find yourself, this might even sound weird, almost getting excited when a bug is presented to you now? Like, oh, what is this one? How do I solve this one? Let's dig into it and see if we can figure it
Absolutely.
out. Yeah.
Absolutely, it has gone from fear to curiosity.
Yes.
And it's also, I mean, I don't want to be blunt, but it's also a collar raising moment when you can say that, it's not on me, your application is malfunctioning, so can you just fix that? But other than
Right.
that, definitely, I mean, to have the opportunity to fix something. And our workplace, we often had these retrospective calls where we would talk to the rest of our team to tell them what challenges we went through and how we overcame that. So that was also something to look forward to, that in our Friday calls, I would talk about this and how I dealt with this. And I learned a lot, I've grown a lot from these, so looking back, definitely.
Yes. All right. Charlotte has a question. She says, do you feel pressure to solve bugs on time for work? That is an excellent question.
Absolutely. And that is the thing that's standing over our heads, and not just time, but I mean, the words that would be thrown at me if when I reach that point. So I won't, and I'll say that the pressure will be there whether or not I'm able to solve them. So even if I do solve the bug, whatever I need to report to them on, say, Monday morning, even if it's a successful report, it still gives me feelings of agitation. And definitely, getting pressure to work on time that is the parameter, the number one parameter. So what has helped me is, again, just giving into the community and asking for help, if not all my entire team, but at least one person whom I can actually talk to. And not just they may not be able to help me functionally too. I mean, they may not tell me how can I solve this thing, but just their presence and knowing that they went through this, or sometimes they would just shift my focus from the area that I'm focusing on to another point where the error could be. And I used to be a very rigid person. I used to think that whatever area I'm focusing on, that is where that is the source of it. But many a times it wasn't. And I got a fresh perspective. So I would say that working together, the camaraderie in the office, that really helped me. And that, again, the concept of time was made easier because they were also struggling with time, and we could just help each other.
Yeah, that's a great call out. All right, Mary Ann would like to know, how do you train juniors on debugging?
Definitely. So the first thing we check is the entire logs of the bot. We filter it. So we usually, when we check the logs of one execution, we can filter it based on an error or a fatal error or something. So first thing is to identify where did it go wrong, and then we try to run this that segment of code, try to give some dummy inputs if it is dependent on a larger set of inputs, that is. And run it in front of people, run it in and analyze the logs. So the debugger part of coding is very important here, that sometimes we just I used to do that. That was a big mistake I made, that I was just execute the code and see what's happening in the screen. But that's not what is important. We need to see what's happening behind the screen. So all these intermediate variables that get assigned, sometimes sometimes say your bot is fetching a wrong input. So all this while it was say working with the number 3, which messes up the entire calculation. So it had nothing to do with what you're seeing in front of your eyes, but some calculation that was happening behind. So the back end of operations, it takes a long time. Debugging is, I think debugging takes more time than development.
I would totally agree with that. And it's easy to get like down into the logs too and almost lost. You have to, it's a fine
Yes, so
line
true.
there, very fine line. All right, well, it looks like we're almost at time. I don't see any other questions. Yeah, those are good notes, Marianne. Check logging, push dummy data, analyze the logs, and take your time. Well, I want to thank you again, Madhura. This has been like the most fantastic talk. It's been wonderful. I so appreciate you taking the time to present this to us and answer all these questions. And I want to remind all of our attendees to keep on enjoying the conference today. There's a lot more great content. And I want to use, like, I wrote down some notes as you were talking, and I want to use some words that you said as we end this. Like, I think we all need to remind ourselves that we're emerging as beautiful butterflies. So keep that in your heart and go proceed with your day. And everybody enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.